Hello, my name is Jack Ashby and I'm the Assistant Director of the University Museum of Zoology here in Cambridge. And I'm here today to give you a virtual tour of our exhibition Breaking Point, Fragility in Clay and Nature, which is here at the museum through the summer of 2021. I'm one of the curators of the exhibition along with John Fanshawe, who is my colleague from the Cambridge Conservation Initiative, with whom we share our building. The exhibition Breaking Point is an installation by three artists scattered across the museum, in and amongst the museum specimens on display here. And the idea is that it draws a parallel between the fragility of ecosystems and ideas of environmental change and ecological decline with the fragility of fired clay. Clay, of course, being made from the earth. So terracotta, for example, means cooked earth. Before I get into the specifics of the exhibition, I'll just give a quick introduction to the Museum of Zoology. So the museum is founded in 1814 as a part of the University of Cambridge, somewhere that students would come and learn about comparative anatomy and zoology, but also as a repository for people studying in Cambridge and around Cambridge. There are other scientists in the city attached to the university. Their collections have ended up here over the last more than 200 years. They might have been studying the classification of animals, their evolution, their ecology, and we now have around 2 million specimens covering the whole of the animal kingdom, the diversity of life on Earth over more than 500 million years. The critical link in that story for the exhibition today is that our collections that we have now are vital for studying topics such as environmental breakdown, so biodiversity loss and climate change. Large museum collections like ours are the best evidence base that we have for studying and therefore mitigating these huge global challenges that are facing and affecting everyone on Earth today. That our collections, as I say, collected over more than 200 years, represent a record of what life has been like over the last 200 plus centuries. So we can say that a specific specimen was found in a specific place at a specific time. And by comparing those records over huge tracts of time, we can say how things have changed, so how the ranges of species have changed, and how the conditions in which those species have changed, which will help us understand how the world is changing, and also help us predict what future changes might happen as time goes on. So we might be able to predict where species will be able to live. So those 2 million specimens we have, obviously really important, that we have on display. The thousands we have on display are inspiring people to care about the natural world, but the research that goes on behind the scenes is also really important for safeguarding the future of the natural world. And this isn't a new topic for the University Museum of Zoology, but it is particularly relevant now, especially now that we do share our building with the Cambridge Conservation Initiative. As I say, they're in above us in this building. It's the largest coming together of environmental NGOs anywhere in the world, and the museum is kind of the ground floor of this building, helping to share stories about conservation. So, as I say, this isn't a new topic. Cambridge's first professor of zoology and comparative anatomy was a man called Alfred Newton, and we have an enormous number of his specimens in our collection today, mostly birds. Newton's family tree is interesting and problematic in that on his father's side, the family wealth derived from sugar plantations in the Caribbean, so his grandfather held slaves. Newton clearly had links with the political realm. His father was an MP, and his mother's father was also an MP, Richard Slater Milnes. Slater Milnes was a campaigner for the abolition of slavery. But Newton did approach politics too, but as a scientist, having become one of the leading authorities on the extinction of birds. He was one of the founding and most prominent members of what became the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, the RSPB, and he did the research that laid the groundwork for the UK laws to protect game by enforcing closed seasons when no hunting is allowed. And this topic of bird conservation particularly allows me to introduce our first installation in Breaking Point, and I will take you upstairs to see that part of the exhibition. So this is the red list of endangered British birds by the ceramicist Jayne Ivimey. Jayne Ivimey has created by hand ceramic representations in life size of the 67 birds on the British Red List. Now, a red-listed bird species means that it's undergone at least 50% reduction in its UK breeding population, and at least a 50% reduction in its UK breeding range over the last 25 years. So it's kind of hard to get them all in shot at once, but this is just a really graphic representation of kind of the scale of loss. Now, birds are obviously one of the most visible parts of nature for us. They're everywhere. When we open our windows, look out our windows, go walk down the street, you're very likely to see a bird. So it can be easy, I suppose, to miss the specifics of what's being lost. But there are currently 67 species in the UK that are on this red list. That's more than a quarter of the UK birds. And she has taken inspiration from specimens in museums. So these are kind of representations of bird skins that you find in museums. So these are, just to show you the difference between what we call bird skins compared to taxidermy. So we've scattered just a handful of our paired species. So golden oriole made by Jayne on the right here, compared to one of our own specimens of them. Likewise, a field fair often see around Cambridge in the wintertime. One by Jayne, one from our collection. So just to explain what bird skins are compared to taxidermy, this isn't part of the exhibition, but here's one of our golden eagle taxidermy specimens. So this specimen has been obviously mounted by a person. It's been skinned, and the specimen has been recreated to look like the living animal in an extremely difficult process. Requires a huge amount of anatomical skill and artistic handiwork and artistic vision, but it isn't the way we normally store specimens in museums. So we have tens of thousands of specimens more like this. This is also a golden eagle, but it's just what we call the study skin. So this has just been skinned and kind of not arranged to look dead. It's just been padded out on the inside to hold its shape roughly, and that's obviously a lot easier to use in research. It's a lot less open to, not less subject to human interpretation, so it's more scientifically valuable. So this is what our specimens in museums look like, and this is what Jayne Ivimey's piece, The Red List of Endangered British Birds, reflects. She thinks that just holding these kinds of specimens really allows you to understand the fragility of these animals and their exquisite engineering, she says, and holding up your hand that fragility, obviously making them out of ceramics reflects that. So we have some very familiar species coming up here. Here's a curlew with its beautiful curved beak for probing in the sands. We've got the crested head of the lapwing, and of course the massive bill of a puffin for picking up sand eels. As well as putting those few specimens of our own in and amongst Jayne's installation, we have also paired in our main bird displays. This is our songbird display. We have paired a few of Jayne's specimens here. So there's our specimen of a starling looking down on Jayne's study skin as well. So these are scattered amongst the museum's displays. It's a really profoundly beautiful artwork, but it is just astonishing to see that number of birds at such risk, raising in scale from the largest bird in the UK, which is white-tailed seagull, largest flying birds, or wingspan, I should say, right down to the finches and warblers and tits at the other end of the scale. The second piece I want to show you is called Harvest, and it's by the ceramicist Mella Shaw. And it is based on or inspired by the terrifying statistic that by 2050, the weight of fish in the ocean is set to be overtaken by the weight of plastic in the ocean. And that is staggering to contemplate because, of course, if you consider how much lighter the average piece of plastic is compared to an average, say, like herring or mackerel-sized fish, the volume of plastic that is required to match the weight of all the fish in the ocean is too big to contemplate. So what Mella Shaw has done is to create a body of work of ceramic and smoke-fired fishes, and also this astonishing pile of ceramic plastic bottles. These are slip-cast ceramic plastic bottles, and she used over 32 different molds, different kinds of plastic bottles, so that I'm sure you'll recognise. There are hand sanitizers, there are drinks bottles, water bottle, milk bottles in there, spray cans. So all things that everyone is likely to encounter on a very regular basis at home, just bringing home how all of us have some part to play in how much plastic is released into the ocean or into the environment every year. If you to hold these, what she's done, just to reflect that idea of weight, is that we obviously in this installation have many more of the plastics, many of the ceramic plastic bottles, than we do of the fish. And in fact, holding these, it's amazing to hold them, that the weight of the ceramic fishes, they really feel like the same weight as I say, like a mackerel or a herring. And the plastic is so much lighter. So it is pretty astonishing. We've also, I'll just take you into the gallery, we've also done the opposite of taking her work outside the gallery and placing in our fish displays some more of Mella's plastic bottles, so it's kind of really making a link to the collection as well. So amongst our shark specimens, we have some of Mella's bottles, and down with our rays, just a few of the sharks, a few of the plastic and ceramic plastics and fishes in there. And ceramics are a perfect story to tell the story of plastic pollution, because of course for millennia ceramics have been used as the kind of principal durable, cheap and largely disposable manufacturing material. So the seabed is littered with pieces of shards of fired clay. Obviously, fired clay is a really common archaeological material to find. So in recent decades, plastic has taken the place of ceramics as that easy to use, durable, multi-purpose material. But unlike the clay that's we find across the planet, plastics have had having a devastating consequence on the natural world. So I'm sure everybody knows about the volume of plastic pollution, and that it is now one of the principal threats to life in our oceans. And Mella Shaw's work here is kind of trying to highlight that through what I think is quite a visually astonishing installation. I've come back down into the museum's lower gallery to show you Mella Shaw's second piece in Breaking Point exhibition. And it carries on that concept of tipping points that we saw in the Harvest Fish and Plastics exhibition upstairs. And it is called Janus Forms. We've scattered these in and amongst our cabinets. There's 4 sets of them to allow people to kind of explore the museum and discover things in our cabinets as they go around. And these Janus Forms have been moulded in a way that they're perfectly weighted to have equal and opposite sides. They call to mind the fragile balance of ecosystems. The title, Janus Forms, references the ancient Roman god Janus, who had one face looking forward, one face looking backwards. He was the god of gateways and transitions and thresholds, representing beginning and endings, life and death. And as Mella says, he's an apt figure in this moment of climate emergency when everything risks being taken out of balance. Our final installation in the Breaking Point exhibition ends on a potentially more hopeful note, and it's Elspeth Owen's work, Making Do, and it directly, most obviously, makes this link between the fragility of the earth and of ceramics. And she has created 2 giant ceramic eggs, and this is one of them here. It's whole and undamaged. Just to give you a sense of scale, there is my hand, so it's about 30 centimeters, 40 centimeters tall. So this is one is complete, a whole egg, whole ceramic egg, and the other she has smashed into 20 irregular fragments. I'll just show you a few of them, which we've scattered in and amongst our specimens to be found again. So this is one sitting under our aardvark. We've got one under our wharf. Make a walk across the museum to one sat under the mouth of our hippo, almost as if it's about to eat out of it. So this is Elspeth Owen's Making Do ceramic eggs. There's 20 of them to find around the museum, 20 of these fragments. Now the smashing process that Elspeth Owen did can be seen in her film Make, Do and Mend, which she made with Sally Connie Todd, which I'll show you at the end of the tour, where she rolled another egg, much like this, down the steps of a highway overpass footpath. And it is really quite spectacular. So the whole piece, Making Do, references the specimen in museums where the animals, as you can see on this rhino, the animals have obviously been taken apart once they died and then have been put back together with bolts and wires and glue in this kind of mending and remaking process. But most specifically, Elspeth's work is a direct response to this, which is a giant elephant bird egg, which we have been very lucky enough to borrow from Sir David Attenborough. So elephant birds were 450 kilograms, more than 3 meters tall. So that's over 3 times the size of an ostrich, which is the largest living bird today. Elephant birds were most closely related to kiwis, and they went extinct by the end of the 1600s, but possibly they may have gone extinct about 1,000 years ago. So this egg itself, this individual egg, is relatively famous because it was reconstructed by David Attenborough from fragments. Now, they've done a very good job at covering over the cracks, but it was also broken at some point in the last several thousand years and was found as fragments of shell in Madagascar, where elephant birds once lived. And David Attenborough was filmed in the 1961 BBC's Zoo Quest to Madagascar, rebuilding it. So Elspeth's pairing of her intact egg and her broken egg that we've scattered around with Sir David Attenborough's elephant bird egg is intended to remind us of how easily things break, and also, but more positively, to remind us of the human desire to gather those pieces together and to mend them. So that is a very positive note to end this tour of Breaking Point exhibition. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you get to come and visit the museum at some point soon and see what we are doing next.
These are the ones I made a long time ago at the seaside. and you can see I made them from inside. They're bulging, and these are the 3 that I made on purpose as specimens to try doing the breaking, and they've turned into completely different creatures. Really, they're hefty. They were made very, very quickly. These are like boulders somehow, and these are more like some kind of contorted egg, I think. This is the sacrificial one that we're hoping to break. I'd like to make sure we bring out the mend, making do and mending in all this breaking. I guess that's what's coming. With the idea of making something deliberately to break it, and the difficulty I was having with that. See, here's the other handle. These are obviously too heavy for this thread eventually. Pretending it's mended now. And waiting for this sort of storm that we're going to have to make happen. Changed into something else. Perhaps it's because it's so different from the way it was made. To put it back, it's so different. Coming like that. To be round again, are you? It goes definitely like that. Seems to push it up. Of course, there must be a piece missing. start. I quite like the idea of bashing it against a step or something. Just one hit and see. I quite like. I don't want it all into tiny bits, I still want a big bit left. It's extraordinary, trying to control how things break. Mad. This is my smallest plate that I dropped something on top of it, and it was my grandmother's plate, so a bit of me wants to mend it. A bit of me knows it's broken and that's it. Oh look, it does go back though. I just touch them and they'll mend.